Welcome to Phoenix Cinema Podcast. I'm Chris Austin.
And I'm Luke Parker.
And joining us this week is our regular guest, our favourite cinema manager of the Phoenix Cinema itself, Zalan Pall. Welcome, Zalan.
Hello. Welcome, guys. Always a pleasure.
Happy to have you back. Yeah. Zalan is joining myself and Luke today to discuss Latvian filmmaker Gints Zilbalodis' Oscar winner for Best Animated Film, Flow.
So Flow is directed by Latvian filmmaker Gints Zilbalodis. It's a wordless animated adventure set in a post-apocalyptic world where nature has reclaimed the earth. The film follows a black cat who survives a devastating flood and embarks on a sailboat voyage across a flooded landscape, forming bonds with various animals, including dogs, a bird, a capybara, and a lemur. Produced using the open-source software Blender, Flow is noted for its meditative, non-verbal storytelling. The film premiered at the 2024 Cannes Film Festival and garnered critical acclaim, winning the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature, the Golden Globe in the same category, and multiple awards at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival. With a modest budget of €3.5 million, it's grossed over $36 million worldwide, becoming a cultural phenomenon and Latvia's most viewed film to date. So, I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love this movie.
Oh, good.
Absolutely, yes.
Good. Yeah, I thought the film is a stunning achievement, a beautiful work of art. And it's a very timely commentary on the state of the world right now on a global climate scale. And this is a potential future for us all, for the planet. Yeah, I thought it was really, really lovely.
Yeah, I think it's one of those films that, stays with you for a while as well.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate in a way that I watched this film way before it came out. Because, sometimes when there's a hype about a film and then you read about it, you can go in there and might be disappointed or you have a different expectations.
Yeah.
But this one was the complete opposite because I watched it, as a preview screening way back in September, and I didn't even know, but there's the Oscar nominations and things like that nature, coming to his future, and I was absolutely, floored in a positive way, and there's so many elements of it that it just, You start to think about it, and always when it comes to a film that stays you for a bit, after you watched it and starts, as you say, so thought-provoking things that you can relate to, maybe not too distant future, in our lives, sadly. So, when it comes to those elements and when you start, hearing about the production and then, how it came about and the little things about, how the whole film was made, absolutely incredible achievement.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty small team that worked on this, and I think it was like almost 6 years in the making.
Something long time, yeah.
And something I've really loved reading about was kind of the cultural significance this now has in Latvia, and like how it's something Latvia is so proud of to have this film as its output. And apparently there's now a big black cat statue that they've put up in Riga, which I think is where Zilbalodis is from what I've read. But
that's
I
amazing.
think that's really nice to read. For what's a pretty low budget film coming out of a country not really known for its film output, and seeing it do this well is really great.
Yeah, and I mean, this is clearly a labor of love from this filmmaker because he's credited as director, co-writer, co-producer, co-composer, cinematographer, editor, art director. I mean, that is a whole lot of credits for one person. That's really impressive. And to win the Oscar for those efforts is quite something.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think, even when in the Oscars, people, realize that it went against some really big studio films,
right,
which were amazing as well. Not just like I personally, I love Wild Robot, and then
Yeah,
this
same.
you as
I
well.
haven't seen it.
But this film is works in a completely different level, and it's not just the fact that there's no dialogue, and then you always come up with how do you drive a story forward. But obviously does it is this stunning, gorgeous like set pieces, and how it effortlessly moves around, and have the fantastic metaphors and the movements of the animals. And I'm not sure if you guys knew about this, but they one of the few films that they used actual animal voices as sounds. Right? Most films like this, they have paid
Oh,
actors,
wow.
mimicking animal sounds, which is, like for kids' films, that's what you do. But here they actually use actual animal sound to be more realistic.
Wow.
That's why, and then even he talked about the director about the movements of the animals, and they wanted to make sure that they be very realistic. So the way the animals behaving is actually very representative how they would act in real life. They wanted to make sure that it is a film about animals. But what really moved me, that yes, it's about animals, and how this unlikely group of animals try to fighting for their survival, and throughout that they're still retaining their dignity. And there's a lot of human elements and human metaphors involved in this film. That for me, it works on a many levels. That it's not just a kids film; it's really a universal film. Which is, when it comes to animation, I think that's one of the main, for me anyway, benchmark. Because you could tell a film for kids, but it should work for adults as well, in my opinion.
Right.
And this is obviously such a universal topic. You could say that it's not even for kids, because the metaphors and the layers it works.
Yeah.
Agreed. It's going to go right over. I mean, the screening I went to was full of kids. So, animated movie, that was to be expected. They were very loud. And it's interesting, though, because it was, at the same time, it was so nice to see these really young kids so engaged. Some of them kind of lost interest toward the end and grew very restless. And I was thinking, yeah, because this is also very much an adult movie, and there's so many things happening here on so many subtextual levels that, they're just not going to get it. I mean, there are death scenes that are represented in a way that's like, whoa, you know? So,
And
yeah,
the storytelling is, is quite unconventional. So it's totally understandable that these kids would kind of distance themselves from the film as it goes on.
yeah.
But I think it still has, that's why I think it works on different levels, because it has this hypnotic beauty, right? It's just fantastic, gorgeous animation, but and all done in a free software. That's what I think is a lot of. I think that maybe when it had award season as well, realizing that you made this product. There are all these 50, 100 million budget productions,
Right.
and you made it as a free animation software. But so it has this beautiful set, and obviously animals and the characters, but they have this really playful storytelling, and that follows up with very profound implications. And in a way, this is how, for me, the film works, that we entertain, and we just go to this different world, and in the third act we try to bring it home and land it on the higher moral levels, and the duality, and that, as you mentioned, the deaths, and the probably trying to tell us that for the characters there's a realization as well, that sort of kind of an exchange, for the way I took it anyway, that it's kind of the way of life, that you lose something, but then in order to gain something, sometimes that's how it is, and yeah, I thought it was staggering, and yeah, it's one of the best films of the year for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I really do. I really agree with that.
I think 2024 was already a bloody amazing year
solid
for
year.
movies.
Yeah.
You know, and I agree with what you said earlier, Zalan, that like Flow was up against some pretty stiff competition in the best animated category. You know, Wild Robot was great. The new Wallace and Gromit film was great. So the fact that this wins is really, really amazing.
Yeah. And I've got to say, I'm a cat lover, and seeing this cat alone and without protection from the greater external forces of the world gave me so much anxiety.
It's a stressful watch. It
really
watch, that's
is.
for sure.
Yeah, it really is. But one thing I really love about this film as well is seeing these relationships develop among the animals was really well done. And despite being dialogue free, all these animals have very clear and distinct personalities and relationships to each other. That was something quite remarkable that they were able to do there. So that come the end, everyone is so unique and distinct. You can really tell them apart. It's quite, it's stunning.
Yeah, they've clearly studied the behavior of these animals quite closely and the way they move. So the fact they're able to get this much expression just out of their movements and their facial expressions, is really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think sorry, Zayn, what are you saying?
Yeah, it's agreed. Like there are elements in it when it's staggering, because you expect them to do something, in your mind, in that situation, and then they act like how the animal would react, and then when you watch it, that makes sense. But then they have, as you say, these fantastic characters that they have personalities, and it's kind of like humans with an animalistic movement in the film. So to combine this and carry out throughout the film, it is a fantastic achievement.
Yeah. And I also got to say as well, I think the score is really great. And again, that's Zilbalodis as well. It works so well with the film. And I think the fact that it's dialogue free really enhances the music too. Now the music has to, in a way, fill in for where the dialogue is missing and help to tell that journey. And when you watch this on a big screen, and it needs to be seen on a big screen with great sound, you hear that music. I especially love the dog chase right at the start, the way those drums come in. I mean, you're like, wow, this is, I thought it was remarkable.
Not even just the music. I mean, I think the sound design just in general is amazing, especially with like the underwater scenes and all the environment. It sounds so real. And like you said, the lack of dialogue really brings all the sound really, really to the forefront. It's very, very strong.
And also, it kind of helps the transitional bits, because that's what I felt like what was amazing about it, that it was basically like it's so smoothly just going from one set piece to another, and then to have that transition, the music, as you mentioned, Chris, it's very integral part of it. And the water, I think they really had some incredible research when it comes to the design of it as well, because it's just wanting to create a fantastic and gorgeous sort of otherworldly world in a way. But then you see the reflections. There's so many times like the reflections of the water, which is in an animated film that is stunning, really. And then, as you say, it just goes from very suspenseful bits when you are edge of your seat, kind of feeling you're getting, and that's why you're right that it's probably more powerful to watch it in a big screen with a great sound than just check it out at home, because there are some elements that is you can't replicate it, in that
exactly setting. Yes, exactly. And this is where the big screen enhances everything for you, and this is a movie that you should watch on as enhanced a level as possible to truly appreciate the artistic, efforts that have gone into it.
Yeah, I mean, I really regret not watching this on the big screen. This is one I had to rent on Amazon.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
As I was watching it, I was like, damn, this would look so good. I mean, obviously, it still looked amazing. And, one of the things I did want to mention was, as has kind of been touched on already, like these set pieces and the world design. It's so vague and kind of there's a mysterious element to what this world is, because it's not the world we know, obviously. And the visuals are just incredible. All these massive statues, all these mountains, and there's almost an alien feel to it.
It feels like, it's. I think there was a concerted effort to show us that it's not specifically this Earth that we know, but maybe something in the future, or like it doesn't say, that it's 2085 or something like that. But there are obviously human elements in it, and all these, felines, statues, and the world, that we know. But I thought there were a lot of, interesting choices of animals as well. And then, as you mentioned, with the black cat, I thought that's actually a very brave move, because and I heard about this, and I've seen some statistic about it to underline it, that actually this film had people adopting black cats, because in general black cats, for
That's right,
superstition reason, or
Yeah.
I don't understand the reasoning, to be honest, but there is this thing that it brings you bad luck. And then the reality is that people or kids or just parents, when it comes to the choices, black cat is not the top when it comes to selecting a cat. And it's just great to hear that this is actually skyrocketing the status of black cats in the entire globe.
That's
And
great to hear.
it's just the fact that how much I love these kind of like sound bites and stories when it comes to films, because it shows the power of cinema. There are certain storylines that could change a whole movement or a feeling, or and that is fantastic. And
I mean,
general, all the other animals,
my brother has a black cat, Kika. I want to give Kika a shout out right now. We love her. She's a part of the family. Whenever he goes away, me and my girlfriend look after her. And so watching this film, I was like, I felt this connection. All of a sudden, it wasn't just a black cat. It was Kika, so it became really emotional too, in a way. And and I have to say, I'm so glad, Luke, that you brought up the landscape and all of that, because there's something almost unsettling about seeing human architecture and things that humans have built, and
it feels almost biblical, doesn't it?
Yeah,
With, like,
it does.
These temples and all these these statues, hundreds of meters tall. It's a sight to see.
And the threats as well, like the threats are biblical proportions.
Yes, that's right.
That's the and
the
I
flood,
think
yes.
There's a lot of things when it comes to. I think in a lot of areas as well. This is and some people can relate more than others, but that is a significant thing when it comes to every year. We hear these flooding stories all across the world, and that is quite real. And I'm pretty sure. Luckily, I never had to experience real danger to my livelihood, but I've been on in situations and I had to help out certain territories, and I can imagine how much it brings home certain things for individuals. And I'm glad that this film tried to tackle those things, which, as you mentioned, with the non-dialogue thing, that the beauty about it is that you don't need, because when it comes to dialogue, sometimes it could feel forced, that you really want to drive a point across, and that could rub somebody in the wrong way, because even though you agree, like we all understand, that climate change and the environment is a significant topic of ours. But there's a way to go about it as well, because you don't want to be pushing certain things down people's throat, because that's probably not the way to put them, bring them on your side. So when you do it in a subtle way, and when you do it in a playful way, and then you bring it home in a very dramatic fashion, that's when, when good storytelling really comes to the forefront.
Yeah, it reminds me of literally yesterday or the day before, I was listening to a podcast and I heard this story that Tim Blake Nelson, the actor Tim Blake Nelson, was saying about, he was in the movie The Thin Red Line, Terrence Malick directed film. He wouldn't name who the actor was. He said, very big actor. He had a big scene, lots of dialogue, very big moment in the movie, and he was nervous about it. He did the scene however many takes Terrence Malick wanted, and then he approached Terrence Malick afterwards and said, so, Terry, how was it? How did I do? And apparently Terrence Malick said, it was fine. He said, but the thing is, the moment you actors open your mouth, I just don't believe anything. He said, I really wish I could make a movie with no dialogue. So, there you go. It speaks to that. And
sometimes people connect with, just their eyes. I mean, Chris Nolan asked Tom Hardy twice, in Dark Knight Rises and in Dunkirk as well. He's literally just acting through his eyes. And you're absolutely right. There are sometimes you could tell through moving images and just word settings a lot more with the power of music, as you mentioned.
Yes. And I've got to say, there's something almost comforting about a planet completely devoid of human life, or so it would seem. It's like, we fucked this place up, so it's only right that it should become uninhabitable, and that these beautiful, perfect animal creatures should live on, albeit in peril, and not exactly in peace, but in something approaching harmony and love and community. I thought that was really, really endearing. And also, before we move on to pairings, one thing I wanted to touch on as well is, I thought it was really interesting how the film pretty much takes the realism of things at face value. This is a world in which, potentially the climate has lashed out, and, the world is uninhabitable, with these rising water levels just wiping out humanity. And it's pretty grounded in that realism, for an animated film at least, until the end, when all of a sudden things start to get a bit existential, and there are maybe a couple of death scenes that are conveyed so beautifully, and they have this dreamlike, ethereal quality. And what was so wonderful about that is to imagine that this is just how these animals perceive death, as opposed to how we do. Oh my God, I just thought that was so, so touching. What did you guys think about that sort of shift from reality in a way?
That scene blew me away. Like, the combination of those visuals, the colors. It was almost like this explosion of the Northern Lights. As we see this animal just like disappearing. Yeah. That with the amazing bit of score. For me, the music in that scene was the highlight of the score.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I need to go back and listen.
It's some of the most, it's probably some of the best, but also some of the most interesting, like, visual storytelling that I've seen. I'm still maybe trying to think about what it all meant.
Right.
I think it's down to whichever way you want to perceive it. I mean, for me, it was, as you mentioned, that these are animals acting, like very realistically as animals, but towards the end, as they grow in character as well, that's when the human traits come in. And for me, as I said, like the realization that it's the way of a circle of life, in a way that it's okay to let go, in a way, because that's has to be part of it. And also I think I think that the element of the use of different type of animals as well, it's kind of, I think it may be just could reflect on the fact that we have so many times when it comes to politics or anything that's happening in the world, that with people focusing on the differences and how we act completely differently, like these animals, and in a normal way that they probably would try to eat each other. But then it's a common threat, and then
Yes.
you have to think about, okay, well, there is this existential threat potentially for our planet. So we start to have to think in a way, in a great scheme of things as well, how to put certain, negative things aside and differences, but we have to work together in a way, and that's the only way to work. And those are the things that I think the film is trying to bring home. And then, the way I interpret it is that it's just letting go, and it's realizing that sometimes you have to, in order to gain something, it comes with a sacrifice and loss as well.
Yeah, loss as well, right. Most importantly, yeah.
I think one part of the film I'd really like to shout out is, obviously, we see this whole myriad of animals in this film, but there's one that really stuck out to me, and that's kind of the whale. I don't even know if it is a whale, because it kind of, the design doesn't seem obvious to anything that I know, but it's some kind of whale animal, and it's kind of this recurring presence throughout the film. And besides the fact that it's some of the most beautiful animation that I've ever seen, I was kind of, while watching the film, I was kind of think what kind of the message was, what's this all about. I did think, are they looking at this from like an environmental disaster lens, environmental catastrophe, like we'd already spoken about earlier? But I wasn't really too sure until we get to the last scene with this whale where it's been beached, and we just have this back and forth of the cat and this whale's, just the eye of this whale slowly losing life. And at least to me, the way I kind of interpreted that was, we have this world that's been destroyed, and then no matter what we would do to save it or for it to go back to how it once was, like a part of that world is always going to be gone and always going to be dead. And that's, for me, what the whale kind of represented. I hope that kind of makes some sense, but it really stood out to me, that scene.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the music brings that feeling across, because it's the end of the day. That's what matters when it comes to cinema. Like, what emotions does it bring out of you? And there is a lot of the directors that would say that there is not one specific way. You might want to drive the story towards something, but what you take away and what I take away could be completely different in the same bubble, in a way, because that's what it is. And that film has the traits of all of those.
Yeah, that's kind of why I never want to hear a director talk about any specific film, or I don't want anyone to tell me what something is supposed to be. You know what I mean? I think there's been a couple of times where I've had my own interpretation of things, and then I listen to an interview or I'm like, oh, that's completely not what they were going for. That's interesting, but that doesn't mean that it should change in any way your own experience and your takeaway from that.
You're completely right, because in general, when you look at films that reaching iconic status, a lot of them, that ambiguity and the fact that there are different theories and people keep talking about it, it means that the film itself grows, and so there might be a new generation with a different take, and they, as they, the way they see the world, they have a different view on that film, which is completely probably not what that director intended to, but it still works. And that's the great cinema, really, when it comes a topic of discussion and debate. I mean, that's what we want. Then you think this is the way, and then you think the opposite way, and you still building your own point, and that's how this kind of cinematic artwork becomes bigger than it's just a little moving image on a screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the whole final 10, 15 minutes of this film is that as well. What is that? Yeah, it's completely up to whatever you think that may be, you know? Beautiful. Well, all right. So, Zayn, I forgot to ask did you prepare a pairing for this
Yes,
film?
but I actually prepared too, because I have a feeling that I'll wait for you guys to work.
That
There
we have
might
one
be
of
a
those?
very obvious one, and
I feel mine
let's
are really
see.
obvious as well. Oh, no.
Well, I'm usually the obvious one. So, all right. Tell you what, I'll go first. I went for the red turtle.
That's the one.
Oh,
literally.
I had a
no.
feeling, yeah. That's okay.
All
I
three
had a
of
feeling
us.
that might be, yes.
Amazing. Oh, all three of us. That's the first time that's ever happened, surprisingly. You know, and it's funny because, Luke, you were the one who introduced me to the red turtle. It was
The
in
Red
film club.
Turtles is one of my favorite films. Yeah.
You know, and it's also a movie which has no dialogue, right? And it's except for maybe every now and then
grunt.
hey, yeah, or something like that. A man shipwrecked on an uninhabited island, and his attempts at escape are like repeatedly thwarted by this red turtle. He develops this relationship, friendship with it, what have you. But it's something that sticks with me. You finish the movie and there are images from that movie. There's ideas in that movie that almost haunting in a way. But it's beautiful. And the score, you know, to compare the two, like this one is absolutely amazing. I can't remember who did it. Laurent Perez Del Mar.
Yeah.
I listen to it often. It's on my Spotify playlists, and it's absolutely beautiful film. Can't believe all three of us got there. But
the water
what's
is
that?
a huge. The water is a huge element.
Yes.
So that's part of it, and absolutely.
Pretty vague in its storytelling, I suppose.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, clearly a perfect pairing then. But Zalan, you said you had something in the bag.
Yeah, it's just something the emotional side of it. My choice would be Watership Down. This is a 1978 animated film, and that's the one that I had strong feelings in terms of loss and the power of family and an adventure, and this is one of the early classical animated films that when you look back that's that had a big impact, and it's I'm not sure if you guys seen it because it's obviously
The film used to scare me.
So it's just basically the premise is like a group of rabbits leave their old home and try to set up a new home for themselves, and that will be free of cruelty and human intervention. So I'm pretty sure that if I've not seen any interviews, but if like any animator who wants to get into films, I'm pretty sure they like the director of Flow as well probably would cite this as one of the influences for the storyline, and it's a heartbreaker, it's a tearjerker, but it's so much. There's a lot of the themes involved when it comes to like a group of individuals, animals, but they have like human traits, and I think if you get a chance to see it, you won't be disappointed. It's a fantastic film.
And this is why we need you in our film club. Honestly, so you've seen it, Luke?
Yeah, years ago. It used to be on telly quite a lot.
Oh, so I'm so glad you mentioned this, Zalan, because I never have seen it. I'd heard of the book, but I only read a critical piece about this film 2 months ago for the first time. And so, and it struck me. I thought I need to see that. So perfect. Thank you so much for choosing that. I need to get to it. All right. Well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Terrific, yes.
And thank you, Zalan, for programming it. Honestly, Luke, there has not been a dud yet.
I don't think there has.
From Phoenix Cinema so far this year. Honestly, incredible. We can't wait for the next one. And we can't wait to have you join us again, Zalan, as well.
It's always a pleasure. And then, it's nice to talk about a film that we all like. I mean, it's good when there's like different thoughts and you can debate. But there is something reassuring when you watch a film like that and you all come away with the same, uplifting things, but also, as you know, the third act, that there's a lot of things to take away and think about.
Absolutely. And Flow is that kind of movie. Yes, it absolutely is. But yes, thank you both. I'll see you again soon. Special thanks to Phoenix Cinema. A special thanks to Zalan Pall joining us today. Our music is by Stefan Krieger. You can find more of his music on stefan-krieger.com, and our episodes are edited by Noah Anderson. Head to the cinema now to watch Flow if you still can. And you know what? Why not be the Phoenix Cinema? And I'll meet you there.